Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTO.
Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host today. We're honored to have a Dr. State Representative, Suleman Lalani. State Representative Suleman Lalani is a Democrat from Sugar Land, was elected in 2022. He is the first Muslim member of the Texas legislature from Fort Bend County and a founding member of the AAPI caucus, which he now co-chairs. Dr. Lalani has been in private practice in Sugar Land and Greater Houston area for over 2 decades. He immigrated to the United States in the early 1990s to begin his medical career and has since dedicated himself to closing gaps in the healthcare access throughout both his clinical work and charitable efforts. As the only general practitioner currently serving in the Texas legislature, he brings that same passion for access and equity to the Capitol. Dr. Lalani, State Representative from Sugar Land, thank you so kindly for being on Politics Done Right.
Well, thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Well, since I found out that you're a doctor, one of my passions actually is healthcare and healthcare that is universal for all. Before we get into the core of what I want to talk to you about, I want to hit my pet peeve in this fashion. Texas has left billions of dollars on the table because it did not accept the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, which has likely caused the death of thousands of Texas over that period. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. I tell my folks also that, we are penny wise and pound foolish in healthcare. We are very reactive rather than proactive. And that's where the primary care prevention that comes into play. And we need more and more people to be insured and to get the affordable care and access to care, because it is very easy to treat when the disease is in the is in the infancy rather than when it becomes secondary and tertiary complications. So I tell our people, you can easily treat pneumonia at home or in the office, but when they come from respiratory failure and they end up in ICU on a ventilator, that cost goes 10 or 100 of times more than that. And guess what? Who's paying for it? Somebody is doing it. So we need to make sure that we are more proactive. We are more rational about thinking. And I am educating my colleagues. Some of them had no clue. They were saying people who try to get Medicaid or are not insured, they're lazy people. They don't work. They do this, do that. And I was telling them, you know what? I have teachers. I have firefighters. I have all kind of patients of all color, all races, and gender. I have a teacher who has spent her 50 years of life, and now she's not able to make her ends meet and get her medications on her retirement check. When diabetes hits you, it hits you. It doesn't ask you color of your skin, doesn't ask you what is your faith, doesn't even bother to say, are you Republican or Democrat? It's going to hit you if you don't take your medications. And in my practice, I have seen people with 20 years of diabetes running a normal life, and I have seen people with diabetes for 2 years and having amputation and going into kidney failure. And biggest problem was access to care and medications and compliance.
So therefore, have you been attempting to get them to get not pound foolish, but sensible in maybe looking at great. Now,
and in fact, I have to add, I've asked the speaker in the interim to create a committee so we can look into the healthcare access in Texas, and then also look into what other states are doing, including some Republican states, what they are doing, and how we can do better practices in our state.
Now, what are your thoughts?
And I hope he's going to grant that special committee.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I don't hold up much hope, because I think this thing about healthcare is pretty ideological in this sort of a rugged individualism that some people tend to have in your not in your caucus, but in the GOP's caucus. Now, Doctor, I know that you guys are supposed to be taking up 6 bills. Is it just those 6 bills you're going to take up, or can you add more, etc.?
Are you talking about the special session?
Yes, for the special session.
So the special session works is technically only things that are on the call should be discussed and be voted out. So there are 18 things that the governor has put on the call, and those are the things that will make progress. Now, people are free to file any bills. Would that be getting any hearing or not? That's a different story. But technically, only things that are on call would be processed. And my belief is that they are focusing on a couple of things, and the rest of the things are fluff that is added to distract people.
Right. The big thing that's on the bill right now is the redistricting. What are your thoughts on redistricting? I understand that many Republicans, many of your colleagues, are really not interested in redistricting because they fear that the dilution of the districts will actually instead of gaining them 5 seats, would put many of their sure Republican seats at risk. What are your thoughts?
Well, that is true. This is a manufactured crisis that has, come to light from President Trump to steal the minority representation. There's no need for it. They are putting politics over people. We have seen that, and historically also the party which is in power certainly tends not to do well in the midterms. But in this case, certainly the Trump's ratings are going down, and they're scared left and right about it. And so they're trying to do whatever they can do to manufacture this crisis and make sure they can rig the elections, because by doing a logical way, right way, they are going to lose elections. So they're trying their best to scare people. The Democrats, you're right, or the Republicans in Texas has not asked for it. It has been thrown on their lap. I've been speaking to a lot of our colleagues, including our Republican colleagues, who have told us in privacy that, yes, they don't like it, they don't want to do it, but in public, they're scared to say that. This is the time where, as I said, the Trump numbers are down. Even in economy, they've been pumping about immigration or borders, but even in economy, his numbers are going down. Working families have been affected, and then they are not going to vote for him. So they are scared left and right about this. This is an extreme violation of our Voting Rights Act. Never happened before, where they are taking the representation of the minority communities out of it. And if you look at the districts that were named, these are typically they are targeting the black and brown folks. So this is not a good thing to do, and we should put people first and do things about floods where people are even burying their family members now. They are rebuilding their homes. There are thousands of people are displaced. We should look into disaster management, disaster preparedness plan, that how we can improve and do better, rather than we are spending time on things which is not needed and not wanted by the Texans.
I understand from a few Democrats that I've spoken to that many are willing to go, for all practical purposes, go into hiding, etc. Where do you stand on not allowing there to be a quorum?
This is the fight. This is the fight, and we're here to fight for the people, fight for the working class that have sent us to represent them. We are not here to play politics. So we are here to do anything which will be needed, and all the tools in the toolbox, we're going to use it. We're going to make sure that we fight on the floor. We're going to make sure that we engage people so they become better educated of what is going on. Make sure all these hearings are packed so they can come and testify. Make sure we can go to the legal routes and then, do whatever possible we can do. And, the quorum break is one of the options. But we are looking at all the options that we do, and we are here to fight, and we are serious about it.
Well, I tell you that normally I'm usually concerned about the performance and some of our Democrats as far as whether they are willing to stand up to the Republicans in the state house to protect the people. But what I've seen with this particular, your bunch, if you will, is that they seem to be much more engaging. Have you seen that more of your colleagues are willing to challenge the other side?
Yes, as I said, all the options are on the table, and then we are weighing it, and we are meeting, and we are looking at our strategies, and then we are here to fight, and we are here to represent our constituents. This is not a Democrat or Republican fight. I think this is a Texan, this is a U.S., yes. This is American, this is a national fight. This is a fight about our democracy. And this is just the beginning in Texas. And I think they are going to take it over to all the other states. So there's national attention on it. I'm very happy and proud to see our other states like California, New Jersey, Virginia, and a lot of other Democrat states have stepped up, and they said that they are here to support. I'm seeing the support from the national and Washington from our congressional colleagues. I'm seeing support in our Texas House and Senate. So we are here to fight. I think we all are part of the team, our people, the constituents, the legislators. We are all here to fight.
Now, let's get a little bit into the flood now. We understand that there are several times presented to the legislature were options to protect people on that Guadalupe River. A lot of people say let things occur on a local level. But the interesting thing is that the Guadalupe River goes through several counties, go through several cities. When you have things of that nature, you expect there to have some sort of in this case, a state governance and the state having an input to it. Have you and other Democrats rightfully first made clear to assign that this did not have to happen, assign blame, and then assign solutions?
Absolutely true. Any one preventable life loss is like losing the whole humanity, right? We can prevent things. This is 2025. We are not in the Stone Age. There, technology exists. We need to be better prepared for our emergencies, and better prepared, better informed is safe communities. So we need to do that. We have filed many bills in the past accordingly too. Some of that have gotten hearings. Some of them are on the deaf ears, and then nothing got hearing, and they were not prioritized. I actually came to work, and I made sure that our office is drafting some bills, and actually 5 or 6. And then one of our bills have come back, and we filed HB 174, which is specifically asking and strengthening our youth camp for emergency preparedness and safety requirements. And we should be focusing on that first rather than doing anything else.
Excellent. Now, I just have 2 more questions, Doctor. Something that concerns me a lot. Incompetence is something that's fatal. Incompetence is fatal. We've had the ice storms that didn't have to occur, that left a whole lot of Texas in cold and a lot of Texans dead. We've had these floods that we've seen occur. We also have in West Texas, where we have seepage of oil and all kinds of substances that are killing off the cattle of many of our ranchers. So you mentioned earlier, a lot of these issues aren't Republican or Democratic issues. They're issues of competence. My question to you is, will more of the Democrats who always seem to be the bastions of competency, start enumerating these things for people to see that this flood in Texas isn't a one-off. The crash of our grid from the freeze isn't a one-off. The pollution that's occurring on farmlands in West Texas is not a one-off. This is a consistency of what's occurring in this state, and it needs a revamp altogether. Your thoughts?
It is absolutely true, and that's what we are educating people. I keep on doing town halls to educate my constituents and other people too. I tell them, look, I am in District 76, which is Sugar Land, Richmond, Meadows, and Stafford. But if you are my constituents, thank you. If you're not, I'm open to adoption. You can adopt me. because when we sit on the floor, we're not representing just the District 76. I am part and parcel of fabric of whole Texas. And that's what I'm educating people and telling them, get engaged, start asking for accountability, talk to your elected officials. And advocacy is not a one-time deal. It's not just you made one phone call, you send one email, and then you sit on it that you did. It is an everyday process. You need to be persistent about it. You need to keep talking, keep engaging, and ask your elective that why are they voted yes and why they have voted no on certain bills. Ask the committee chairman that why so-and-so bill has not been asked for and why you're not hearing that bill. So, for example, one of my bills, senior living, that I put in for backup generation and emergency plan, because we have seen time and again our seniors who are vulnerable and are being affected by these things, right? I mean, we lose power. For us, is sitting in the warm and not getting an AC, but power for a senior who has diabetes, who has respiratory failure, is life threatening because they are on equipments that rely on power. And then, I have people seen the diabetic came to the ICU with 500 blood sugar because they cannot get insulin on time when this disaster happened. Some of them lost medications. Some of them were in the facilities, and the nursing staff could not open the medication cubicle because the power was lost and it was locked. And then later somebody came and broke the glass and got the medicine out. Some of our people ended up in ICU because they were on oxygen and did not get oxygen enough, and they went into respiratory failure. We had people with dementia. We had people ended up with so much paranoia, psychosis, anxiety, so much antipsychotic medications went up, so much side effects happened. We had people who had fall, broke their hip, came to the hospital. So all these can be prevented. So I had a bill for senior living and assisted living to have backup generation, and the emergency plan. That bill was not getting hearing, and I was so much surprised and so much upset about it that this is a very timely need. Are you going to wait for your mom or your dad to have this suffering and then you will open up your eyes? Because we are not talking about statistics. We're not talking about numbers. We're talking about somebody who's somebody's grandpa, somebody's wife, somebody's friend who is affected and have been dying. And that bill was not getting any traction. And I started talking to my constituents, started talking to my colleagues, started putting pressure on it. Suddenly it came on, it got hearing, but it kind of, fizzled out down and did not make it on time. So yes, we need to educate our people. We need to make sure they're getting engaged and they're making our elected accountable. This is what they can do now. And in future, make sure they come out and vote and they elect the right person. So we don't get into this reaction again. So the people can take the right decision and represent them fairly.
Dr. Lalani, my last question is always, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think you asked me enough, but I would like to focus again that this is an unprecedented times which will require an unprecedented leadership, a fearless leadership that can talk truth to power. We need a compassionate leadership that would represent their constituents. We need an honest leadership that will come out and do the right thing. So make sure you can become our eyes and ears. You can become our extenders. You can become our help and support us in what we are doing, and make sure you are asking other legislators and your friends and families who live outside the other districts also pressurize on their elected and say, hey, why don't we support? I have this Dr. Lalani's bill. It's in the committee. Have you put the hearing on? Would you vote yes on it? And if you will say no, let us know so we can try to convince them. And otherwise, you can try to convince them that this is a good bill we need to support. So this is the battle that we all are in. And irrespective of what status we have, I think we all are here in it, in this game. And we will be united to fight. And God willing, keep the hope, keep the faith, and keep the fight. And we will be the winners at the end.
State Representative Suleman Lalani, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity. Thank you so much.
We're honored to have, once again, a frequent visitor, Mr. Jerry Ashton. Jerry Ashton is the founder of End Veteran Debt and was formerly the co-founder of Rest in Peace Debt as well.
RIP medical debt, yes.
RIP medical debt. And now let me tell you, folks, why do I have Jerry on once again? Because Jerry is going to be the recipient of a very important award, the Pillar Award. He'll be receiving that award along the likes of Senator Whitehouse, Senator Tom Tillis, yes, as well as Lev Parnas. And let me tell you, folks, this is about whistle blowing. And what I intend to have Jerry talk about today is the importance of whistleblowers, the importance of you making a difference in our society. It's not going to come from the top. It's going to come from you. It's going to come from people like Jerry, who took the bull by the horns and said, I am waiting for nobody to make a change. We are the change we've been waiting for. Jerry, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, my friend?
Well, after that introduction, I'll float away with my puffed up self. Thank you.
Well, I think the puffage is deserved. Okay.
Well, thank you. Not just hot air, right?
No. So talk to me, my friend. How have you been over these last few years?
Very good, thank you. And I want to thank you for the acknowledgement of what I've done and the importance of, number one, being a whistleblower. And my plea to the audience that you have is that each one of you is in a position to blow the whistle. You're just not aware of it yet. Perhaps you're not even aware how important you are to making a change in society. But whistleblowers and journalists, which, by the way, is a form of whistleblower, these are the people that America needs right now. Not the pundits, not the talking heads, not the influencers, but people with rock-solid truth and honest presentation of facts. No misinformation, no disinformation, just the facts.
Now, how did a debt collector, and I put this kindly, how did a debt collector become a whistleblower?
I finally figured it out.
Okay.
First of all, for background for your audience, I was in the debt collection industry for decades. And in that industry, I was known as a loose cannon because I would write for their magazines and tell them how wrong they were for doing certain things. And of course, I have credentials as a former Navy journalist. So I was more than ready with a pen and paper and camera and what have you to bring attention to wrongs that I believe needed to be righted. Well, towards the end of my career, I semi-retired, and then along came Occupy Wall Street. Now, I'm in Manhattan. I'm 2 or 3 subway stops away from Zuccotti Park, and it looks interesting. So I hop on the subway and head down to Occupy Wall Street to find out how real it was. What was this all about? And the more I visited the Zuccotti Park, the more I began to resonate with some of the complaints that were being registered. There are wrongs that need to be righted, but you can't right a wrong that you don't know about. So when I was down there, a bill collector in the midst of Occupy Wall Street, they discovered that there was a member of the debt collection industry.
You.
And they wanted to make a point, and they said, well, here's a guy who just might be able to give us a hand. So long story short, it ended up that I was invited along with Craig Antico, who was also with me in the debt collection industry, and who has a company now called Forgive Co. I'll tell you about that in a second, about how we forgive veteran debt. So here we are in the back offices of Occupy Wall Street, where they would go out and raise money for a charity that they call the Rolling Jubilee. And when they brought the money to us, we would go to the debt market and buy medical debt for them for pennies on the dollar. And then they would forgive it. So that was unique because nobody at that time ever talked about medical debt. Believe me. What's that, 16 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that? 10, 12 years ago anyway. Yes, 12 years ago, 13. Occupy, unfortunately, got kicked out of Zuccotti Park. The movement began to fade. Mm-hmm. And Occupy came up to me and Craig Antico and said, we're going in another direction, and we're going to shut this down. Well, they were going in a good direction, by the way, which is student debt. And they've done a great job on that since. But when they were abandoning medical debt, and this is my world, is debt, and medical debt certainly being a part of it, we looked at each other and we said, we can't let this happen. And so that's why we started our IP medical debt in 2014. A couple of ex-debt collectors, two guys who walked into Occupy as debt collectors and walked out as debt forgivers. So from that humble beginning to date, RIP medical debt, which has been renamed Undo, UNDUE medical debt, has abolished over $20 billion for over 10 million Americans. And along the way, it was because I caught on to the fact that if people don't know about you, they can't do anything about you. And that's when I began currying the favor and writing stories about what we were doing. And the more stories got out there, the more donors showed up. We ended up being on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight show and blew everybody's mind by the fact that you could actually buy medical debt and forgive it.
You were buying it on 10 cents on the dollar or something like that, or cheaper, right?
How about a penny?
On a penny a dollar, okay.
Yes. So
explain a little bit about that, then we continue, because people don't get it.
Yeah, this is part of whistleblowing, is revealing to people the inside information that isn't released publicly. Very few people understand that debt is bought and sold on the market, just like ham hocks and futures, pennies on the dollar. And it's sold amongst and between debt collectors. So there's an entire industry called the debt buyers industry that will go to hospitals or to payday loan people or to lenders and credit card people. And they say, obviously, you're not doing a very good job of collecting debt. Why don't we buy it from you? Otherwise, it's just sitting there. So a lot of people will sell their debt, whether it be medical or credit card or payday loan. They'll sell that debt. Once that debt buyer gets that debt in their possession, and usually for 3 cents or less on the dollar, because this is uncollectible.
Right.
Okay, uncollectible. So they buy huge portfolios of debt, and then they turn it over ourselves to debt collectors. And that's why you and I are getting calls for debt that years ago we thought had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
What an industry. I was part of that industry, not in the debt buying, because I worked at a different level,
right?
Consulting the firms. But there we were with this knowledge that very few people had. And we said it's about time that the public knew about that. And that's why Undo Medical Debt has been to the White House twice. That's why different states have been able to forgive millions of dollars of debt within their states, thanks to that charity and the charity that I left behind when I discovered that veteran medical debt was in those portfolios. That was a shocker.
So you left Rest in Peace Medical Debt after they were renamed to Undo Debt.
Yeah,
and you formed a new organization called End Veteran Debt, in which you work mostly and specifically with veterans to help them out to get rid of their debt.
Exactly. What I discovered, Craig and I, is that it confused me, and most people, civilians, believe unwittingly that once you raise your right hand and you commit to giving everything up to and including your life for your country, that when you came home, you'd be taken care of. Wrongo bongo. Go to www.endveteranmedicaldebt, and you'll find out the first exposure, the first whistleblowing I did, that even the VA puts veterans in debt because they refuse to pay a doctor's bill that should be paid, but they found out some reason why it couldn't be paid. That's why people who suffer from burn pits, the lung diseases, that's why people who were suffering from Agent Orange, years and years, these claims were denied because it wasn't proven that this was service related. Now, let me repeat that. The healthcare that the VA provides to veterans is only because it is actually service related. You served in Vietnam during this period of time. You were here and there. You were in Desert Storm. So all these little things that showed up later for veterans' illnesses, gotten rid of. Craig and I went down to D.C. and we met with the House subcommittee, some members on veteran health. And I said, exactly how much debt has the VA refused to pay over the last few years? Listen to this, Egberto. $6 billion.
Wow.
$6 billion on the backs of the people who pledged their soul and their time to our country.
And what's amazing is they don't have a problem building bombs for $500 million and all these things and letting it flow like no problem, but to help human beings. $6 billion in the budget for the military budget is chump change. And they can't do it. Go ahead.
Well, because there's no money in it. Mm-hmm. See, there's money in building bombs because somebody makes a profit.
Right.
There's no profit in making a veteran healthy.
Right. That's a shame, isn't it?
Well, that's why I retired gracefully from my wonderful charity. It's still doing great. And I opened up in veteran debt, and those veteran debt, not medical debt. Veterans are the single area of the population that is prime target for predatory debt.
Right.
Whether it be high interest rate credit cards, those car lots, new and used outside of military bases, payday loans, you name it. And of course, debt of necessity. The very fact that if I don't pay the rent this month, if I don't put gas in my car to get to a job, I, as a veteran, am now homeless, jobless, just because a few dollars weren't created. So in our genius, and this is the interesting part, this is what I think identified me as someone of interest for the
award, the Pillar Award.
Yeah, the Pillar Award. And that is, not only did I blow the whistle, but I did something about it. You know, very few whistleblowers are in the fortunate position of being to say, hey, look over here, this is wrong. And by the way, come join me in fixing it.
Right. In other words, you're not only reporting the problem, but you're serving you're multifaceted. You're reporting the problem at the same time that you have a solution in that now you're buying this debt on pennies on the dollars and freeing a whole lot of folks from that debt. I want to add a little something to the discussion because a lot of people buy into and I know a lot of us, people get upset when I talk about the scourge that is the current economic system that we have. A lot of people would say, well, these folks got themselves into debt and, they need to pay their debt off. Let me just first say that as people like, what I call heroes like Jerry Ashton go out there and buy debts on pennies on the dollar. Let me tell you another dirty little secret. All that debt that Jerry buys was written off by those companies and they got tax credits for those particular debts. So therefore, it's a new stream of income and economic activity. What Brother Ashton is doing right here. It's just one of the standard flows of the type of economic system that we have. Going a little bit further than that, our economic system create a whole lot of financial instruments that are beneficial to the upper guards, that beneficial of the invited into the aristocracy of capitalism that aren't taken care of on the lower levels. And guys like Jerry go out there and they play the same game with the system to help you get away from the ills of the system. Continue, my brother.
Well, you're absolutely right. Now, let me give you the zinger. It's not just taking debt off of the backs of veterans. It reduces veteran suicide.
There you go. Exactly. In other words, you're also saving lives, something that those who believe in humanity should want to hear. Continue, brother.
Well, if you take a look at that, or if you're not familiar with the term social determinants, I'll provide the information on that. A social determinant is something that influences something downstream. Mm-hmm. It will determine from a social environment what is going to happen. For example, if you're in a food desert, that's a social determinant that you will have poor health. Mm-hmm. You don't eat the right food, the greens, the what have you. If you're in a transportation desert, more than likely, you will not have the job that you want or need because you cannot get to it. debt is a social determinant of suicidal ideation and the act itself. So what we did, the royal we, the people that are working with EndVeteranDebt.org, what we're doing is creating a campaign called End Veteran Debt, in which we literally raise money in order to do several interesting things. The goal is with our organizations like Staten Island, we're working with their Veteran Task Force. Together, we're raising $50,000. Both of our charities are raising $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
$20,000 of that will be used to buy and eliminate $1 million of the veteran debt across the country. The remaining 30.
Wait, how many thousand will eliminate
20,000? 20,000 with this combined approach to it. 20,000 will buy that debt from Craig, and Craig Antico works with me on that. He evolved into an organization that goes out and does it publicly, as opposed to a charity. And what we do is we use Craig's abilities at ForgiveCo and his son Eric to be able to take the money that we raise, go to the debt market, buy the debt, and expunge it for us. Beautiful. A partnership that's going on now in our relationship over 20 years. Now, if you take a look at the other $30,000, $15,000 goes to End Veteran Debt in order to keep the lights on and the doors open, and to pay for all the costs of the media work that we're doing. Then the other $15,000 goes to Staten Island, to the veteran organization there. We're working with Michael Matthews, who's running that, a civilian. Now, this is what I call CivVet organizing, civilian veteran. So we're working with a civilian who's put together a veteran task force on Staten Island. He's going to get the $15,000, and they're going to apply it to the local needs, the local immediate needs. So what we're doing is we're thinking globally, taking care of debt across the country and acting locally, so that veterans will get that rent paid. They will get that wheelchair they need. They will be able to get that transportation to the job.
And what was that total cost that you guys did that with? You collected
$50,000.
You collected $50,000 and you split that up.
We're in the process. And by the way, anybody out there who'd like to forgive, and work with us to get rid of veteran debt, you're invited to give me a call, or Jerry at endveterandebt.org.
That is Jerry at endveterandebt.org.
That is correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that we don't do that. People I intonate it out, because we want people to want to see it. Look, folks, let me just say, one of the things we try to bring to our show is people that are actually making a difference. And you hear that our interviews are not just a decoration, if you will. It's about having people who make a difference. And folks like Jerry Ashton here, I've known Jerry Ashton for a while now, is out there making a difference. And this man, given his age, he doesn't have to be doing any of this stuff. He could be sitting back, chilling with the tea at his pool and doing whatever he needed to do. He could be out there taking a trip to Jamaica.
I'd love that with you.
Yes, exactly. Or come out to Panama with me at a resort, and we chill in front of Contadora with some good ackee and saltfish. But he's not doing that right now. He's out there working. I admire that, Jerry, because that is one of the things that I said. When I pretty much terminated the function of Willies Computer Software Company, I said I wanted to do what's good, and it's painfully humbling, because you really don't make you don't really make money doing this kind of stuff. You just survive. But the biggest part of doing this is that you're actually helping people
who need
help. And it's the best feeling out there. So I can imagine the first time you saved quite a few debtors billions of dollars, it was almost an aphrodisiac for you, that you had to continue doing it and doing it and doing it again.
Well, I don't know about the aphrodisiac, more like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Here's the deal. if you are awake, and by the way, that's a lovely thing to be as opposed to asleep.
Right.
Like when I walked into Occupy Wall Street as a debt collector, and I'm hearing all these complaints about capitalism and this and capitalism that, I'm listening. I'm a businessman, have my company, but what they told me, what I heard was the truth, that there's some forms of debt that are absolutely unacceptable. Predatory debt being that.
Yeah.
So I'm listening, I'm awake, and it resonates. And you'll find this out if you dare to make this world a better place through your work. And by the way, locally is just as important as globally. You'll realize that you have been given a skill, you've been given an environment, a context, that you know things that other people don't know. And if other people knew those things, well, a couple of things are going to happen. If you're a whistleblower at a very high level, like our friend Lev Parnas, I mean, this guy is a former Trump supporter, donated to his what have you, friend of Rudy Giuliani. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons not to like this guy. But what he did is he listened and he observed and he realized that, hey, I am on the wrong track. And he blew that whistle at great personal cost to himself and his family. The bad news about being a whistleblower in a corporate or a political environment is that you are going to be a target. It's very difficult to turn me into a target because why pick on somebody who's nearing 90, who's a veteran, and on top of that, doing good things. So
I don't know who fooled you, but you are a target. You may not know in what form, but you are a target. I mean, I hope you don't go around the place believing you're not.
Well, the good news at my age, I don't care.
Right.
What are you going to do? Take away my job?
Yeah. Look, it is funny, right? Because a lot of folks that are targets don't realize they're a target until they have to do a little something special. And then they realize, oh, I didn't realize I was on that list.
Yeah. Well, secretly somewhere, I'm sure there's someone who's polishing the blades. And I don't care, because what I care about is seeing that we are not misled. As a journalist, I want you to know that when you go to endveterandebt.org, there's going to be a platform on there called Now Hear This, which is a very nice Navy term. All the time on my ship, I'm hearing, now hear this. Well, we have a media platform where we're going to be featuring independent journalists like yourself, Egberto, people that are going to be in the community of news creators and reporters, but somehow or another, all those local newspapers we used to work for and all the weeklies we used to work for are disappearing. And there's no way for the veterans, for example, in mainstream media, only 2% of a newsroom are going to be veterans. What is wrong with that? We're 6% of the population. There's over 20 million veterans right now. 200,000 people leave the service every year, and they come out into this wasteland. This media wasteland where they can't tell their story or hear about their story. So in Veteran Debt and Now Hear This and people like you and independent journalists are making that difference. I'm a member of what they call the Military Veterans in Journalism. So you can Google that, Military Veterans in Journalism, and there are over 1,000 media-trained experts from the military who are now in civilian life, and they're looking for something to report on. So our job is to start pulling all you wonderful independent people together, get you out of your silos, get you out of your ethnic groups, get you into a common ground where truth is more important than ego.
You know, that is such an important thing to do. And I can tell you on a personal level, I have been trying to get some unity among independent journalists for a long time. And because it's such a difficult industry, many a times that is looked at with suspicion. But I mean, when we have a neutral force like yourself, actually attempting to do things like that. I think it couldn't come at a better time. So I'm glad that you have what is it called? I think
Now Hear This.
Now Hear This. I'm glad that you have that coming up, because again, I've written a whole lot of blogs speaking about how important independent journalism is now, why it needs to be supported. Because again, if it's supported by all of us, it serves all of us. Our current journalists are supported by the plutocratic few, and that's who it serves, the plutocratic few. So good work. Well, anyway, before we get out here, I want to congratulate you again now on receiving the Pillar Award. That Pillar Award, I think, is going to be given in Washington, D.C. on July 30th, if I have my dates correctly. Yep. I want to congratulate you on getting that Whistleblower Award. And I think you have been very clear in explaining why you are considered a whistleblower as well. So without further ado, why don't you give me the closing statement that I always ask for, and that's, what did I ask you that you would have liked me to ask you?
Well, I want you to know I'm a new aficionado for AI. Mm-hmm. And I use one called Claude. Mm-hmm. My research showed me that it was the least fantastical. In other words, it doesn't make up stories.
Right.
It goes out and gathers all the available information, facts, details, this and that, and can put it together in a coherent sentence. So I asked Claude just this morning the importance of the work that we're doing with End Veteran Debt and people like you are doing with independent media, and why was our work so important? And here's what it says. The evidence is clear. Debt relief is suicide prevention.
Wow.
Every dollar forgiven, every predatory loan stopped, and every veteran connected to financial resources represents a life potentially saved and a family kept whole.
Couldn't have said it any better. Jerry Ashton. Jerry Ashton is the founder of End Veteran Debt. He's doing important work. He's one of those helping save our society. Jerry Ashton, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you, Egberto, and thank you for the fine work that you're doing.
Let me be clear. I continue to contend that this big hold up or this big rush up that we have right now with Jeffrey Epstein and release all the documents. Let me tell you, while I am happy to see some fire under Donald Trump, I want us to stay focused on what the problem really is. The transfer of wealth of the middle class and the poor to the wealthy, the plutocracy, the oligarchy taking advantage of us all, and the autocracy that's being created in the presidency, sanctioned by a Republican Congress and a conservative Supreme, or I should say, a MAGA Supreme Court. But let me tell you what I see here. When you see Nick Fuentes, yes, anti-Semite, but a Trump lover, a Trump supporter, one of the leaders in the MAGA movement, has this to say, you know, there is something here. And I'll expand on this after you hear Nick Fuentes via Lawrence O'Donnell. Check this out.
Here's the way it was going for Donald Trump among his previously fanatical supporters before the Wall Street Journal's reporting tonight. Here's a well-known anti-Semitic, Holocaust-denying Trump supporter who had dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago once, today reacting to what Donald Trump said about supporters like this guy yesterday, when Donald Trump said, I don't want their support anymore. And he called them all, including Tucker Carlson and this guy, weaklings.
And now he says, if you're not on board with the Epstein cover-up, oh, I don't want your support. You're a weakling. You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. And honestly, And if you watch my show, you know I've been very critical. I've never been this far. This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam. When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were. When we look back in history, we will see Trump as a scam artist.
The MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. The liberals were right. We never had reason to expect to hear those words from fanatical Trump supporters. I didn't expect to hear those words last night from fanatical Trump supporters. That's how fast this is moving. We never, ever had reason to come close to expecting to hear anything like that until Jeffrey Epstein, in effect, rose from the grave to separate Donald Trump from those fanatical supporters.
All right, let's get this right. It seems at this point that there is a concerted effort to screw Donald Trump. I mean, I hate to put it that way. I mean, today it comes out about him having a health issue that they're actually, we know about his swollen ankles and all kinds of stuff for some time now. We allowed the media to put a whole lot about Biden's health condition and mental acuity, etc., when we always knew Donald Trump was a nutcase and Donald Trump was overweight and likely not in very good health. But somehow the mainstream media allowed that to slide as Donald Trump continued to push the issue about Joe Biden. But here's the kicker, right? We always knew that while we put all these blames on Donald Trump as being an evil person, etc., we always understood that Donald Trump was just the face. Donald Trump was just the instantiation of something that has been occurring in this country to some would say since its inception, but on steroids since Ronald Reagan. Yes, we have made strides for the middle class and the poor and minorities, etc. Yes, we have made strides, but there has always been that boat anchor that ensures that the strides those the many make would never, ever, ever put a threat on the plutocracy. And with Trump, we're seeing that as well. We are in what's known as end-state capitalism or end-stage capitalism. And that is where this system has taken away as much as it could or taken away as much as it could from the vast majority of people, the people that they pretty much consider disposable. And now it has to continue growing. And it has to continue growing faster than everything else, right? That is how it's defined. That is a mathematical formula that governs this economic system. And in order for it to continue, we have to create those distractions and those fights and those hates, etc., among people. And Donald Trump was an excellent conduit. But anybody who's watched Donald Trump over the last few months have seen that he's gone from an irrational, crazy person to one that is maybe getting out of control, and it's starting to mess with the pocketbooks of the plutocracy now. They want a level of chaos, but they just want the level of chaos in such a manner that people don't understand that they are being screwed by the plutocracy and not by the other or each other. But Donald Trump may have been getting out of control for the puppeteers. And you know what? When that starts to occur, they take you out in some form or the other. And I am watching closely because, like I said, the Jeffrey Epstein story doesn't do much for me. After all, the man, Donald Trump, is a person who's openly speak about grabbing on to women's private parts. He's been convicted. He has no soul. We know he just about launders. I mean, the guy is just an evil being, and the hate and the isms in America still found it fit to put him into office. So the Epstein doesn't mean much to me, really. And it still doesn't, right? Because I don't think there's anything in those files that would make me feel any worse about Donald Trump as I do now. He's a despicable person. And whether he's also a pedophile or not, I don't know what lower level of despicability that would take him. I don't know. And not only that, I still think people would support him. But what people eventually may turn on is when they feel, especially his base, when they finally wake up to the point and say, wow, he deceived us. I don't know if you remember several blogs ago, I said, my biggest fear is what happens when MAGA wakes up. And the question is MAGA waking up? Again, I don't care about Jeffrey Epstein or the papers or any of that. What I care about is whatever incident, is it waking up MAGA? And what will the consequence be? Will it suffice for them to just rid themselves of Trump? Because after all, JD is waiting in the wings, and JD is a lot smarter and a lot worse than Trump could ever be. You know, we are in trying times, people. What I'm going to tell you all, we got to keep our eye on the ball. We have to find politicians ready to serve, ready to repeal all the evil done by Donald Trump during his administration, and start supporting Americans, the working class again. But we are in troubled times.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.